healthy, active lives, what that means, you know, a little bit different when I was younger, and I'm a bit younger, a lot younger than you, Ro,
A ton.
a lot younger.
No, I'm younger.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, yeah,
Whoa.
yeah. You're a lot younger than me. I'm the elder in this relationship. So
Way
I
elder.
got a much younger wifey here. Lucky me. And you know, some of those things that when we were younger, like the science wasn't there. We didn't kind of like smoking. Like smoking came out when we were younger. They're like, hey, it's unhealthy. You probably shouldn't do this, but we didn't really know the effects of it. And drinking, the same thing. Like we didn't know all of the cognitive decline contributing to all sorts of, you know, as you age, mental deterioration, physical deterioration, all these negative things that, you know, for us, we focus on that because we're about health and wellness, but we don't ever talk about the other side. And for celebrations, people generally talk about eating unhealthy and drinking a lot, right? So where does that leave us?
Yeah, I mean, when I think about celebrations in the past, it's twofold for me, right? So if I was celebrating something like a win, like when I used to compete in fitness and I won the jerseys, I never allowed myself to celebrate that, which I think is equally as unhealthy. Well, maybe not equally, but that's unhealthy as well, right? I remember literally coming off the stage of the jerseys when I won, and people were like, "Oh my God, congratulations!" And I'm like, "Shh, I have a lot of stuff I have to focus on." They told me I have to get better at this, and I have to get my delts bigger and my legs leaner, whatever it was, right? So there's that, and then also celebrations like holidays and birthdays. I'm Italian. We celebrate everything, like waking up in the morning with food. So there's always that. And then, yeah, I mean, I would get wasted. That was what I would plan to do at every holiday, every birthday. I had a very unhealthy relationship with alcohol. I wasn't addicted per se, but I drank to get wasted at the end of the day. And that's what I did on my birthday. And, you know, I think the year before or the year you came home, because you were released about 2 or 3 weeks after my birthday, I actually got the news that your sentence was vacated as I was getting on my birthday, as I was getting ready to go out that night to go to dinner and drink wine. But I think I went out 6 different times with 6 different groups of people for my birthday that year. And every time I went out, I mean, I got like shit faced. And then I would have to spend 3 or 4 days recovering from my birthday celebrations. So yeah, we do choose to celebrate very differently. And even tonight when we were getting ready to come here, you're like, I don't know what, you know, we usually like dress nicer, and you're like, I don't know what to do. I don't know. And I was like, go just like this, because I think that speaks to what we're doing tonight to celebrate. Like I would rather be nowhere else than at home, either ordering in, celebrating with you and CJ. And I think that's going to be amazing. Like we thought about maybe going out, but Friday night in Vegas, it's kind of hard to get a reservation. So I will be equally as comfortable just laying on the couch and hanging out with you.
Love it, because we are so on the same page with that. And just to clarify, when you talk about us going out, we're talking about like going out to dinner,
Oh yeah.
right?
Oh yeah.
Like everybody assumes you guys are in Vegas, like that's the clubs and even the daytime pool parties, like 24 hours a day. There are parties going on around here, and people just drinking to complete excess to where they're a mess.
And I mean, I was the girl dancing on the tabletops. I lived my life and I had fun. And I mean, in my 20s, in my mid to late 30s, maybe I should have slowed down a little bit, but I don't knock that. Like, I'm glad I did that when I did, but to me, like, that's just not fun anymore.
Well put. Well, I would say, you know, for me, looking back, I made the decision while I was in prison. And for anybody that's followed along with when we talk about prison, pretty much you can have or do almost anything in prison, right? There's plenty of drugs, there's plenty of alcohol, all of those things exist. And man, for the first couple of years there, yeah, I started exploring my passion for fitness, but I was still drinking, I was still smoking, I was still doing a bunch of negative things. And it wasn't until, very vividly recall, it was 2005, my final appeal, I almost missed a deadline because I was drinking and driving, so to speak, in prison. Meaning I had a few drinks, quite a few drinks, was out on the yard, got picked up, breathalyzed, sent directly to the hole. Almost didn't get a chance to file my final appeal.
They actually breathalyze you?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, wow.
They walk around the yard with breathalyzers.
Oh, wow. That's crazy.
Yep. So when that happened, it was like, damn, like how many times is this going to happen where like, isn't this a sign? Like you keep putting yourself in this situation. And I've had numerous driving while intoxicated charges throughout my youth where I lost my license. Like for me, it doesn't work. I don't do anything in moderation. So that was my first sign. I was like, you know what? I'm going to take an extreme stance here and just quit altogether. I quit everything. I quit smoking. I quit drinking. I quit drugs, all of it, 2005. Do I remember the exact date? No, not even important. I know for some people that sobriety date is. For me, it's not. I just made a decision and stood by it. And I'm grateful that as the years passed, it became easier in the sense of I became more comfortable with saying, this is who I am. And it's not like loudly proclaiming like, hey, I'm sober and this is what I am. It's me just saying like when we're out, like, hey, I don't drink. And I'm cool with that. Like, that's my response. I try not to make other people feel uncomfortable. And I've learned I just choose to order different drinks. You know, let me get a club soda and lime. So it almost looks like I have something of a drink. And this is what I choose. And shout out to Joe Rogan's Alpha Brain. I choose the healthy, right? Like this is what I want. Focused on memory and focus. Like I want the things that are going to make me feel good. I don't ever want to feel hungover and feel like, oh, I did that again. So in choosing to live that way, I've very clearly drawn a line and I let the people around me know this is my choice. Now, where I do have an issue is, you remember when we first got out here and we went out to dinner?
Yes, I know what you're going to talk about.
We went out to dinner with basically the people responsible for us being out here. And as we're sitting there, first thing they do, you know, waiter comes up and says, you know, can I get you all anything to drink? And this guy orders a drink and looks at me and is like, what do you want to drink?
Well, explain the background. Like he's supposed to be
to be a lot of things. And sobriety is at the top of that list for how he promotes himself. So I'm like, wait, what? I was like, okay, so you're a little bit different when you're out and there aren't other people around. And he was looking at me like, how are you going to respond? Do you want a drink? And I'm fresh out, right? And you would think this is a person who potentially has some influence over me, over us, the position that we're in. And I remember feeling uncomfortable. And it was a long time since I had felt that way. But I also, after the fact, felt really good about it because I'm like, man, was that a test?
It probably was. And I think the reason you felt so uncomfortable, it wasn't just some random person at the bar offering you a drink. It was somebody you held in very high regard. And then you probably felt almost like, am I obligated to, not that you were, but that's a hard situation to be in when it's somebody that, you know, you hold in a high regard and you're out here because of him and you're working for him. And it was just an awkward situation. I vividly remember the first time you told me you didn't want to drink anymore. And it was while you were still in prison. And we used to talk about like, oh, you know, I can't wait to get out. You know, you fantasize about things and, you know, nights when it's cold in the fireplace and takeout and a bottle of wine, right? Because wine was my thing. And then you told me you didn't want to drink anymore. And I remember being like, I don't know if I could do that. Like, I don't know if I want to do that, right? And I really had to think about it. And I'm like, well, I've given up alcohol for years, months at a time before when I was competing in fitness. And it was more a situation like you were saying, like that's when I was still young. I was in my mid-20s when I started competing. So I would go out to the bars. I just wouldn't drink. And I remember this time specifically, I'm at the Jersey Shore at Bar A. And this guy's like, let me buy you a drink. And I was like, oh, I'm not drinking right now. And he was like, oh, come on. And I was like, no, you know, I compete in fitness. I'm on a diet. I can't. He was like, oh, it's just once, right? And then I literally tried every excuse because I'm feeling bad now, right? To not like, oh, this and that. And then finally I was like, oh, I'm in AA. Literally, that's what I said. And he's like, Oh, but it's just one shot. And I thought to myself, oh my God. And still to this day, I'm that girl that I find it very awkward to, I guess because drinking was such a part of my life, my family. Like I grew up with wine on the table. My dad drinks wine every night. My dad makes homemade wine. So just, I find myself, it's still awkward and uncomfortable. And I don't think been in a situation since we've been out here most of the time, I was either pregnant or breastfeeding. So that was just my go-to, right? But now that I'm not pregnant or breastfeeding, I shouldn't care. But for some reason, I feel like I don't want to make the person offering or drinking uncomfortable. I know that's stupid and crazy. And it's not going to cause me to have a drink because we decided together that that's something that we don't want to do because we live a healthy life. And it's something that, it's unhealthy, first of all, and it opens doors to other unhealthy things to creep back in. Because don't tell me I wasn't at the diner eating cheese fries and gravy disco fries to all my Jersey people after a long night out drinking. So, it's just, we choose not to do that. And I shouldn't have to explain that to somebody, but I always feel a weird guilt. Isn't that strange? Or maybe not?
No, part of that's your personality. You very much, it's in everything you do, you want other people to feel comfortable. It's in the way that you prepare. Like if someone's coming over, there's a spread.
We just talked about this on a podcast
right?
not long ago. Yes.
Right? So you find other ways to make people feel comfortable, to make people feel at ease. So when you can tell someone's not comfortable with your response, that triggers something in you to feel uncomfortable. And it's just becoming, I guess, more at ease with that over time. And it does get easier. And I will say this, I have seen the influence that we have had on others. A lot of times it takes seeing someone else make that decision or doing something to give someone else the courage to say, oh, well, they did it. Like, why don't I at least give it a shot and try and do that myself? And I'll say with leadership, for me, going into that, like I knew that everyone who was a part of this group, that they drank a lot. Like many of the social events were literally around drinking. So going in there with a strategy, like, how am I going to address this, man? If everybody else is drinking a lot, what am I going to do?
Were you finished? Good, keep going.
I was just going to say that what I found over the course of that year was there were a lot of other people who over time chose to make similar decisions to say, you know what, I'm going to try this. First of the year, I know that there was a lot of people that did Sober January or Sober.
Yeah, something like that.
However that goes, a lot of people tried that. And I was like, well, that's cool. And I did what I could to encourage it. But it's not something where I'm like constantly driving it home, subtle image, like Phoenix. People ask me, rise, recover, live. Like, well, what is that? Well, it's sober active community. It's people that are, in recovery and focus more on health and wellness as a constructive outlet, for that energy. They place it somewhere else. And hey, that works really well for me. And I look to support others who feel similarly, however I can. So, but I don't impose that on anyone. And I would say that's evidenced by both of my parents.
Well, all of our parents, when they come to visit, we have wine, beer, vodka, whatever they want. What was it? Jack Daniels, whatever your dad drinks, whiskey. It's not that I don't care if you want to drink. It's just we choose not to.
We do have some questions in the chat.
Yay!
For you two here. So right. I'm going to go ahead and pull those up. This comes from Cecilia McMillan. Actually, we'll start with Carter Bentley. She had a two-parter question here. How do you handle the judgment and pressure from friends, families, coworkers while Adam was incarcerated?
Ooh, good question. So, it depends on who it was, right? So if it was somebody that was just an acquaintance, or I don't want to say didn't care about, but it wasn't somebody who I valued or their opinion I valued, I just kind of brushed it off. Like I stopped talking about it for a while because I didn't want to have to face the judgment and the question. So like at work, I didn't talk about it. At the gym, I didn't talk about it. And I'm not saying this is what you should do because it caused a little bit of like anxiety and stress in my life, but I would have different stories for different people. Some people thought I was single. Some people thought I had a boyfriend that lived away. Some people knew, right? So
and some thought you were just not into men.
Some did. Some really did. What did that happen? Somebody was asking me. I think it was my aunt.
I was
my
gonna say,
aunt, she goes like this. She's old school Italian, okay? So let me just preface it like that. She's like, I'm sorry, it was my uncle, and my aunt stood up for me, but my uncle goes, so you're looking for the right kind? I was like, wait, do you think anyway. So yeah, and then if it was friends and family and people that I, held close and their opinions I valued, I would take into consideration what they were saying. In the beginning, I was very combative because I wasn't really used to it, but I understood where they were coming from and I knew what they were saying was out of love. So I took what they said and I dissected it. And if it was something that I needed to work through and think through, fine. And if it was something like they repeated it for the 5,000th time, then I would just ask them, like, let's just not talk about this. This is something that I'm not going to change. You're not going to change me. So we're going to have to agree to disagree on this one. I'm an adult and I appreciate your opinion, but this is my adult decision. So we're not going to talk about it. And then I set a boundary. If we bring it up, then I'm going to have to leave. And that's the advice that I always pass along to people throughout the years. Like if you ask, even if it's your mom, I don't want to talk about this. So I'm going to give you a couple chances, but if you bring it up again politely, I'm going to have to either hang up the phone, I'm going to have to leave, I'm going to have to not come over.
That's a good answer. That's a good answer. Communication, people. So we also have Cecilia McMillan in the chat. She said, I have so many questions, but happy birthday, Ro.
Thank you.
She said, can you take us through the steps and progression of building your platform and nonprofit?
Wow.
Okay, that could be like a whole entire course in itself. But so we'll give you the nutshell version. I started with a YouTube channel. And I started because I didn't have people in my life that understood. And a lot of those people were the people like we were in the question before talking about that were mean to my face. So I wanted to do it to help people. And I wanted to make something constructive out of Adam's life sentence. If he was never going to come home and the system was built to break us up and to tear me down, I wanted to kind of prove them wrong. It was a coping thing for me. So I started there. And then this was way back when like blogs and forums were bigger than like now it's video and social media. But back then there was a woman who was running a blog, a beautiful woman named Annette. And she was in a relationship with a guy who was facing 10 years. And, she was looking for people to guest write on her blog. So I reached out to her and I was like, I'd love to do a post on your blog. And then we became really close, really fast. And she's like, let's join forces. And her blog at the time was called Strong Prison Wives. And we joined forces and we created Strong Prison Wives. It was a blog at the time. I was doing my YouTube channel. And then her husband went to sentencing and all the charges were dropped. And immediately when he got home, she got pregnant. And she wound up having her baby. I can't remember if it was like 24 or 26 weeks. It was as early as you can have a baby that they can basically thrive and survive. But she had to move into the hospital. She had to quit her job. Like her baby was struggling. Now, this is many years ago and her baby's her little boy is doing amazing at this point. But she was going through a rough time and she's like, Ro, like, I don't know what you want to do, if you want to continue this, but like, I have to throw in the towel. My life is taken a very different direction. And I was like, oh my God, of course. So I thought about it for a little while. And at that point, people at work had just found out and I was approached, and I didn't talk about it at work. I was approached by somebody who was talking about my lifer boyfriend and actually by a coworker who I was friendly with. And she was like, listen, they were talking about this, like you deserve to know. And I was like, oh my God. And I pulled this guy out into the hallway and I was like we got to stop talking about this. HR can't find out about this. It needs to die here. Like there's no reason you're gossiping about me behind my back. This has nothing to do with our job. Stop. They were just gossiping, being, little bitches, but they were guys. Anyway, so I pulled down my YouTube channel in that moment. And then a couple weeks later, I was like, I can't do this. This is bigger than me, right? And if the reason I didn't want to talk about it at work, by the way, is because throughout doing Strong Prison Wives with Annette at that point, we had heard of some people who got fired for other things when people found out about their relationship. So I couldn't afford to lose my job. I had been there for so long that I had a lot of vacation time saved up so I could take off the days of work to go drive out to visit Adam. And so I pulled down the channel, and then I thought about it. I'm like, this is bigger than me. And if I lose my job because of this, then it's meant to be, and I'll find something else, right? But this is to help people, and there is nothing out there for them. So I'm going to keep going with it. And I was never approached about it at work anymore. And in fact, it kept growing and growing and growing. And at this point, it was 2015, I think it was 2015. I think we started in 2012, and it was like, all right, now I'm at a crossroads again. What do I do? And the next logical step was to turn it into a nonprofit. So I applied for my 501c3. I got it. It was like this sweet spot where you were getting it in like 2 or 3 weeks. Prior to that, it could take like months or years. So I got that. I had a team of volunteers of amazing women that help me, still to this day, help me with the social media part of it. They help me with the business part of it. They're basically running it at this point just because, like Annette, now it's my turn. Adam came home, and we have a baby. We have a toddler. So that takes up a lot of my time, as well as my day job and all that stuff. But in a nutshell, that was the trajectory, and that's what I did. But if you're looking to start a nonprofit, if that's why you're asking, then my advice always to people that ask me that is, number one, look for other nonprofits out there that are doing the exact same thing, because you might want to join them instead of reinventing the wheel, because it's really difficult to raise the funds and to get all of the grants and all of that stuff. We're still not funded at this point. So if somebody else is doing it and they're doing it really well, instead of redoing what they're doing, you might just want to volunteer with them or take a position with them. And if not, do a bunch of research, find out where your heart really lies. Like for me, a lot of the stuff I did when Adam was inside was for 924C, which is the law that he was sentenced under. So like where do you want to drive your point home? Who do you want to help? Who's your heart telling you that you need to help? And then do a ton of research, find out what else is out there, and then just do the research on the nonprofit stuff and figure it out.
Wow. That was amazing
advice. That was like a quick crash course.
I was going to say that was, not in a nutshell. That was a full crash course right there. Yeah. And one more thing that I want to add in there, because you did not mention the number of skills that you had to develop along the way. Yeah. Like it wasn't just research. There was a lot of education there. Yeah. You also became a certified coach at the same time, so that you were better equipped to actually serve that community. You had a specific skill set that brought value to them. So I don't want to lose sight of that. There was a lot that went on over those years that allowed you to become the person you needed to be, to lead that community, to be the voice, the chief advocate. And again, it speaks to you focused in on passion. Find what you're really passionate about. The reason I guess you were able to do that, to rise to that level, was because, you were committed. You invested so much time and energy into it.
Yeah, you took the words out of my mouth as passion, because there were things that I didn't want to learn, or I didn't know that I needed to learn, right? And I'm a huge fan of Marie Forleo. And actually, when I was building Strong Prison Lives, I took her B School course, and I learned so much from her. And one of her catchphrases, if not like her ultimate phrase, I think it's the title of her book, is everything is figure outable. And that's the God's honest truth. If you have the passion and the heart behind it, then you could figure anything out or find somebody who has the answers. And that's what I did. Like, I knew that I needed to learn this, and I had calls with people about how to set up a nonprofit. And so many people that have the knowledge, they want to share the knowledge. You just have to tap into them, and you have to find it. You have to find the people who want to share, especially in the nonprofit space. Okay. He's laughing because nonprofit, if everybody's going after the same money, a lot of times it's a lot of sharks in the water, and that's just because the funds are limited. But if it's somebody it's not the same mission as you, and it's not in the same exact space as you, people do want to help. They want to collaborate. That's why I said earlier, if you can research and find a nonprofit that's already doing what you want to do, I would team up with them versus recreating it, because like I said, sharks in the water, and people, there's plenty of money, but they're all after the same grants and the same funding. So they get a little bit catty, we'll say.
And I will say, on a local level, we've experienced that. on a much bigger picture, the relationships that we've developed with a number of people. I had a call today, and I'm going to give a shout out to Glenn Martin. Listen, Glenn was the founder of Just Leadership USA. He's just an incredible, amazing individual, wealth of knowledge, experience, has always been extremely generous with his time, with his knowledge, given so freely. And the guy gets paid. I mean, he is he is a high level coach, should be compensated very well. But anything that I have needed, within reason, like support, just coming to him when we have been going through our own challenges, like Glenn's been there. So there are good people. And when you find those people, what can you bring of value to them? I think that's been a rule of ours.
I learned that from you.
And I think that we do that very well. Not to ask, hey, what can this person or this organization give me? If you always come into a relationship with an individual or with a team saying, what do I have to contribute? What can I give? If you come into it from that perspective, I promise you that there will be plenty for you to gain, because by giving, you put yourself in those positions where, just by proxy, you're around good people, other people of service, other people who want to share their knowledge. And when they see that you are equally as giving, like, good things happen. Good things happen to good people. So
yeah. All right. I think we exhausted this one. What you got, George?
All righty. So the next one we got, we are going to stay with Cecilia McMillan because she's got great questions.
She's been around for a while.
She said, manifesting can be complex. Can you explain how you were able to detach from the outcome?
Ooh.
As you know, it also took action. Where did you find the inspiration for how you took action?
That is such a good question.
That's a great question.
First of all, it is so hard to detach from the outcome that a lot of times we beat ourselves up for focusing on that. And you have to let that go, because the only thing that's worse than doing that is shaming yourself for doing it. So you're only human. You want the outcome, and focusing on it, it's normal, right? It's natural. And it's not that you shouldn't focus on the outcome, because that's what you have to do, is focus on exactly what you want and get crystal clear on what you want and your why behind it, right? I don't want to just lose 10 pounds. I want to be able to get up and down on the floor and play with my baby. I want to live to see him get married. Yes, I want to lose 10 pounds, but it's more the health behind it, that type of a thing, right? So you have to get crystal clear on that. More than not focusing on the outcome, you don't want to focus on how you're going to get there, right? And the analogy I always use is when you're in traffic, right? And you set your GPS and it reroutes you. There's like 5 different ways you can get to the same destination. One might take you a little bit longer. One might take you around this road. One might take you on the highway. One might take you on the back road. But regardless, you're going to get there, right? So it's not focusing on the outcome. It's detaching on from which route your GPS is taking you, if that metaphor makes sense. Is that easy? No, not at all. Because when we get crystal clear focused on something, we also tend to focus on, this is the only way I could do this. I know it's the only way. So the way that I detached from that was, if something didn't happen, then, it took a lot of trial and tribulations and ups and downs. So for example, clemency, we're like, well, that's the only way it's going to happen. There's no other way. There's no appeals left. So that's the only logical thing that can happen for Adam. It didn't happen. I was like, well, okay, that didn't happen. He's not going to come home. I gave myself time. This is important too. I gave myself time to grieve that, because I thought he was coming home. I basically had my bags packed. I gave myself a few weeks. It took a few weeks to recover from that. And then I was like, all right, now what? What do we have open to us? Let's keep our eyes open. At that point, we had nothing. Okay, I'm still going to focus on what I want. I have no idea how, but I'm going to keep my options open, and things started coming in. And you just have to keep your options open, your eyes open, and respond to everything, every possible scenario. Reach out to people. That's how I met the attorney, Sean, that he's here in Las Vegas today. Adam's going to a fight with him tomorrow. But just by reaching out, somebody sent me a newspaper article about him. I just reached out on Facebook. Hey, my husband has a case very similar, blah, blah, blah. So, just explore every avenue and just know when times get tough, you still want to attain that goal, but you don't know how you're going to get there, and that's okay.
That's it. You're doing such a phenomenal job. I was going to compliment you on wanting to do a podcast on your birthday.
Thanks.
So this is a question from George. How does it feel podcasting on your birthday? I would assume this is your first birthday ever podcasting.
Yes, podcasting, but not. I've been doing YouTube for years, and I always did birthday episodes. So I would do different things, like 21 things I learned in 21 years. Not that I started at 21, but so I would do different birthday episodes, and I've had people like my SPWF family celebrate with me for years. So it feels more natural than anything. I'd prefer to be doing this than dancing on the tabletops like I used to do, like I said.
Oh wow, yeah, no, I'm sure Adam doesn't miss that. He would prefer the other one. Dancing on the tabletops?
I mean, we could do that at home tonight. Yeah. That's fine.
we could still do that.
Although this episode is brought to you by my chiropractor, because I wouldn't be here today if I didn't go to the joint today, which we just discovered. I'm hurting. Oh,
that's unfortunate to hear. But we have another question here from Robin Hopt. She or he said, when you both meet other couples who don't know your story, how do you address these topics?
Ooh, good question. I want you to weigh in too, but typically we don't. Well, no, typically I let Adam lead because it's more like his history and I think personally, not that it's not my story as well, but you're the one with the criminal past. You're the one with the history. So I'll follow your lead. And then if like something comes up, if it's something that I don't know, I might be like, do you know his past? Do you know our story? And if it's, most of the time it's like, somewhat, a little bit, and then we'll go into it. But we never lead with that, and we kind of read the room. Like if it's inappropriate, then we just don't bring it up. And if it's appropriate, then we do. What do you think?
I guess I agree with that. Like we have such a natural rhythm.
Yeah.
Especially at this point because we've told our story, like just personally, via media, via so many different outlets. It really is like kind of reading the room. It depends on where we are.
Not that we hide it. We don't hide it. It's just that we might not lead with it.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Like we are so open with it. There's no place that I have ever felt like we better not say anything about it.
Like our babysitter that's with CJ today watches the podcast. Like, love her.
Our neighbors, like.
Oh, that's a funny story. Wait, can I tell that story?
Which one? Our whole neighborhood. Like, it's always a question of like.
Do they know?
Do they know who we are? Like, do they know our past?
We're pretty sure they know.
Have they seen our podcast?
But the neighbors downstairs, we had a family just move in downstairs from us. And they were so sweet. And they came upstairs. They rang our doorbell like 2 days before they moved in. We're moving downstairs. Nice to meet you, blah, blah, blah. Adam gave them his business card. So we didn't tell them our story or anything. It was like a 5-second meeting. Couple weeks later, you ran into the wife? And how did she act towards you?
There was just something in the way she like interacted where I'm like, I just knew, because we've dealt with so many people at this point who, when they see the story, their attitude changes a little. And I don't think anyone has ever been like, oh God, we shouldn't talk to them. I think it's always...
I mean, maybe we shouldn't see it.
Yeah, maybe they might have turned and ran and therefore we don't know. But I would say most people who find out our backstory and we've put so much out, I think that they tune in and they start to see us and they probably feel like they kind of already know us because we're so open with it, so that when we actually see them in real life, they're like more friendly. And I'm like, what changed here?
That's how she was towards you, right?
Yes.
But the dad was like the opposite. Like he's very standoffish and awkward towards us. And I'm like, of course, like they moved into this neighborhood, right? First of all, we have a 2-year-old, so he's loud AF upstairs. The wife is enamored by our story. And he's like, where the hell am I? This is what I have to deal with. The lifer that lives upstairs, like not cool. I'm putting words in his mouth. I'm kidding. But yeah, so we don't really lead with it, but we don't hide it either.
Yeah.
That's the answer.
I got another one here. The Gritability chat is popping. I'm trying to do a good job of popping between both, but
okay.
I appreciate the support, people, that we're giving this channel right now.
I'm loving this, yes.
So this is from Carter Bentley. I'm 22 and been with my fiance for 5.5 years. Any marriage advice?
Oh my God. This is a good question too. Yesterday, Adam spoke to somebody who's going through premarital classes. They're getting married in September? October. And they had to define couples in their relationship that they admire. And then they have to kind of interview them and get advice from them. And we were one of the couples and I was so honored. But my biggest piece of advice, the thing that keeps us so strong, we were just saying this the other day too, is we communicate through everything. And you got to get real vulnerable with your partner. At least I feel like I trust you enough that I don't hide anything from you. I don't feel the need to hide anything from you. And we talk through everything. We were saying the other day, we don't ever fight. Remember, you're thank God we don't fight. We were going to argue. You were joking.
No, I was being dead serious.
But it came out of a joke. Because remember, I was like, let's order sushi. And you're like, I'm not going to argue with you. And then you're like, you stopped and thought about it. You're like, wow, thank God we don't really ever argue. Because we had gone through something really stressful that day. Remember? A business partner that...
Oh, yeah. Yep. Yeah, it had been a rough day. And we don't ever take those emotions out. Or let me correct that. If we do, we're very much in tune with how the other is. If we're not feeling well, if we haven't eaten, if we're angry
short
about...
on sleep.
Yeah, a certain situation.
Hormonal.
Whatever that is, naturally, right? The difference is we don't get defensive with each other. We don't take it personally. Nothing you do, I don't ever see as an attack on me. I don't ever feel like I'm attacked. So even if you are dealing with an emotion in the moment, I'm just there to support you. And likewise, you do the same exact thing. So nothing ever escalates, right? If one of us is angry, the other doesn't go, well, I'm angry and I'm going to feed into this. We just don't ever go there.
And we don't. And sometimes I'm going to speak for myself because sometimes I turn into a 13-year-old and my initial reaction is if you're getting snippy, I remember a couple weeks ago, your back was really flared up. Adam has 2 slip discs, is that what it's called? Herniated discs still from prison, and they really, really bother him sometimes to the point where it's excruciating. For Adam to say he's in pain, period, is bad, and then to have to take something, whatever. So he was bad, and he was getting kind of short and snippy with me. And at one point, he got really snippy, and my immediate reaction wanted to be what do you want me to do? And I took a breath and I swallowed it. And he was like, I'm sorry. And I didn't say a word, but you're like, I'm sorry. I'm in a lot of pain. It's making me irritable. So my lesson to you guys in that is sometimes you just need to slow down and take a breath and don't respond knee jerk. And sometimes you will, especially hormonal. How many times I was I have to do this. It's the job that's paying us, the other day. And if it happens, it happens.
But then I don't respond.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
We're very good about not negatively escalating, feeding off of each other. And I want to add this because so often you hear, fighting's normal, fighting's healthy. That's a cop-out. That's from people who just like to argue or like to fight, right? You don't have to fight to be healthy. We are I promise you this, we have a healthy relationship. I don't feel like either one of us feels like we have to give up anything to make sure that the other is happy. We are very much in tune with ourselves and with each other. And that's the result of that communication. That's all.
I agree.
All righty.
Cool.
That was a good answer there. So now let's move to Rose's channel here really quick. We had a Vanessa Poirier. She said happy birthday and then followed up with a question. Hey, how are you both doing? I'm happy to see your face shine with smiles. I love your story and how everything has to fall into place. You are truly an example. Everything is possible. Just believe. Powerful one there.
Yeah.
Powerful. And then from Robin here, she said, are you both living in Las Vegas? Can you see yourself living somewhere else?
So first of all, thank you for the birthday wishes and the sweet words. That was really, really kind. Yes, we are both living in Las Vegas. Imagine if I was all right, I'll live in Jersey, you live in Vegas. We'll figure it out. Yeah, we're living in Vegas. What was the second part?
Can you see yourself living anywhere else?
Sure. We have both decided, and we're both on the same page, we do not want to live anywhere where it gets very cold. We've done enough of that for many years. But we were talking about maybe a house in Florida one day, maybe Arizona one day.
We definitely, someplace warm.
Someplace warm.
Like keeping our options open.
Yeah.
Man, pretty soon we can talk more freely about all of this. The only hesitation here is, well, let's focus on the positive, right? The opportunities that there are right now in Las Vegas, first and foremost, is sticky paws.
100%. But you guys are branching out too, so.
In Florida, Boca
That's right,
Raton.
see?
In Florida, so that would be a bonus for us. But the other thing is the movie studios coming here. Vegas expanding outside of gaming. Like there's a lot of growth, there's a lot of opportunity. All of the things that we envision where we would like to contribute in the future, things that we want to be a part of or want to be a part of our future, see a lot of opportunity for that. And I guess that's what keeps us through the challenges that we still have here. Whereas I think that's normal. Like wherever you are, there's going to be different pros and cons, right? So you're always looking, you're always weighing those things out. But what's number one? The weather.
Oh, 100% the weather. And then also number
without a
two, like CJ's toddler years, but once he gets in school, obviously that's going to be a factor too.
I missed this question, and I have to pull it up right now. This was from Carter Bentley, and she said, where did CJ's name come from?
That's so funny that people thought, because when I was pregnant, I was doing a lot of videos, I would always say his initials were CJ, and people thought we were naming him after criminal justice, which is amazing. So when I was first pregnant, Adam and I were both convinced I was having a girl for no reason other than we just thought we were, and we thought Adam would be the best girl dad. Like we were just convinced, right? So we had some girl names we were talking about, and my sister called me up and she was like, oh my God, I named your baby last night. So I was like, okay, what'd you name? And she listed off like 47 girls' names. And I was like, it was weird because they say mothers have intuition. And I just remember like initially being like, but what if it's a boy? And she's like, now her name's Christina, by the way. She was like, what about, and she said a couple boys' names. And then she said, what about Christian? And I was like, ooh, Christian Clausen sounds amazing. She goes, if you think of a J name, then it could be CJ. And we both just like initially, I remember exactly where we were too. We were on a walk going up Reverence towards Reverence Park. We both looked at each other. We're like, that's cool. So then we just took a couple days. We're like, all right, we'll figure out a middle name. We went with John, and that's CJ.
There it is. There it is, people. So now we have, still from the Gritability channel, this question from Lisa Michelle. She said,
Lisa,
where would you like to see your nonprofit in the next 5 years? Where would you like to see your life in the next 5 years?
Ooh, good question. So I would love for Strong Prison Wives and Families to be funded in the next 5 years. And where we'd like to see our life, definitely 100% we're on the same page. We want to have a house with a yard and a pool for CJ, a space for him to play outside. I think we want to be financially a lot more secure than we feel right now.
Definitely.
Maybe, oh my God, I can't believe I'm saying these words. Have a sibling for CJ. I don't know. What do you say?
Much of the same. I mean, we've mapped out our vision a number of times, and it's interesting because someone asked a little while ago about vision, clarity, and right behind you is that vision board, right? And it's in here for a reason. I mean, it's everything on that board has pretty much come to fruition. And we've been playing around with creating another one, but we have not yet done it, which we need to do. Although we have certain practices, there are things that we are very much focused on. The top of the list is that home. Like that is central to us. And I think that really speaks to our values and where we are right now in life. Like what is most important, right? What's at the top of that list? And it's our family and those people that we really want to have in our lives, and to have a place, a space that is ours where they can come in and be a part of that, where it's, It's our energy, it's our space, and a home that's built around the kitchen.
The kitchen so I could feed everyone. Yes.
Yes, and the pool, and for CJ having space, like we talk about, wanting to have a yard, and Las Vegas is not the only place. A lot of towns, if you grew up in an urban area, right, like you're not used to having a yard. You take it out in the street or you go to the park or wherever. In Vegas, very similarly, much of the development is very close. They're small lots, so they don't really have those yards. And there's a lot of walls. That's one of the strange things here, right? There's walls. And for me, I am not willing to compromise on that, because those walls for me are very much a reminder of prison.
Yes, sometimes we'll see properties and you're like, that's a prison yard. That's not a backyard, that's a prison yard.
And for those people, those families that live there, it might be like their dream home.
Sure.
And that's nothing
we say that all
to
the time.
them. It's just, I can't live in a house that has a wall like that in the yard. It's not going to work for me.
It's also the same reason you don't like very, very modern houses that look a little industrial, because it's similar.
Sterile.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
So we had next question here from Judo. Judo says, Ro, how do you adjust to having a partner after being a strong, independent woman for so long?
That's such a good question, because it was a little more difficult than I thought. And not only was I adjusting to having a partner, I also 6 weeks after he came home became pregnant, and then had to adjust my whole life again and had to find a new identity as a mother. So I think as prison wives we do this because I talked about it for years. I think we find some sort of comfort in our independence, right? And that becomes our identity. And you're strong and I could do this by myself. And sometimes you feel like maybe you don't want somebody there, right? And then when you have to readjust, it's hard. And I remember having this conversation with my girlfriend Annette when she went to go pick up her husband, the girl I was saying that I started Strong Prison Wives with, and she called me on like a freak out, and she was the first of a few. She's like, oh my God, I don't know what to do. Like, I'm going to pick him up. And I was like, listen, take a deep breath. This is everything you've dreamt of and for all of these years while you were being so independent and you were building that crusty exterior. Work together and let him break through it. And that's what it is. And you do have to, it's a little bit of an adjustment phase. Like I didn't have to, I don't want to say answer to anybody because I don't have to answer to you, but I had to integrate you, Adam, into my life. And I kind of enjoy being a little bit less independent and having somebody there to smush the bugs and open the water bottles I can't open and reach things on the top shelf. I'm just kidding. But, it's just.
No, you're not.
No, I'm not kidding, but I'm kidding. Like that's part of my independence that I lost. But it's just with anything else in life. Like I said, like I had to, that was a different identity. Becoming a mother was a different identity. So they're just different chapters in your life that you're living in at that moment. And that's just what you have to think of. And it's, again, it boils down to communication, right? And if you're feeling trapped or you're feeling like, I lost my independence, just have that conversation. I mean, I had this conversation with somebody shortly after he got out of prison, and his family used to tell him when he was getting a little bit too wound up, they'd be like, all right, go retreat to your cell, meaning go into your bedroom for a little while, like take your introvert time, just have a few moments, do what you got to do, and then come out and reintegrate into our family, into, society. But I'm not saying you have to do that. But what I'm saying is just say like, I need to go get a pedicure. I need to go do this. I need to do whatever I have to do. And it's not that you're giving up your independence whatsoever. It could be two independent people integrating their lives.
And let me add one more thing, because I think what was really helpful for us is that we went to a new home, a place that neither one of us had lived in, and had to like feel that space out. Whereas I know a lot of people feel it's like territorial, like this is my space, these are my routines. And that has got to be, for a lot of women like me, trying to envision that, empathize, that's got to be incredibly difficult. Like you've gotten so comfortable in your space and now someone's coming in to do their things, and like finding just kind of how to reestablish that.
Well, and another, something that I used to tell people was, if he is moving into your space, then prior to him coming home, start making space in the closet. Like, where would you want his stuff to be? What drawers do you want to clean out for him? So this way you don't feel like someone's coming in and just like turning your whole life upside down. You have already kind of started to prepare for this. And I have to, if I don't add this part, I'm not being authentic, right? After I had CJ, I went through a tough postpartum phase because Adam came home in the middle of the pandemic, right? So we're already kind of isolated. And then I started working from home, so I wasn't leaving. I had a brand new baby, so I wasn't leaving. We're still in the middle of a pandemic, so I'm not going out in this new city to meet people. And I felt very isolated and very lonely. And I kept a lot of that in my head because I felt like at points I had to be like the perfect wife or things would crumble. And I realized now, looking back in hindsight, that was a lot of my postpartum depression and anxiety that was taking over at that point. But it came to a point where I was pretty much about to snap, and I had to have a few long talks with Adam, and he had to, work through it with me. And we had to figure out how I was going to start developing that, maybe not even as independence, but less loneliness.
Yeah, no, well put.
So we got another question here. Let me pull up this side of the chat. It is from Cecilia McMillan again. She said, this one's for Adam here. Adam, many lifers feel unworthy of love, not to mention the crippling fear of abandonment. Did you experience this? And if so, how did you come to a place where you could receive love?
Before you answer, Cecilia, you're killing it with the questions today. This is amazing.
Right? Yeah. Wow. Excellent question. And that's pretty deep, right? As with all aspects of our relationship, it comes back to that communication. And it's not something that I think that I opened up with initially to explain that I felt I had a strong fear of abandonment. Because in a previous relationship, the last time that I was in prison, I had a longtime girlfriend at that time that chose to leave. I got that Dear John letter, and I had built my vision of the future around the two of us, but I had done that just by myself. And when she left, I didn't really know what to do from that point. And that affected me much more deeply than I ever acknowledged at that point in my life. And it wasn't until later, after I'd done a lot of introspective work and gotten to the heart of, what had really driven me to do many of the things that I did when I got out of prison. The need to be accepted, to always want to be around people, it was a need to be loved, right? And I was searching for that, trying to find that or fulfill that need. And it never worked out, right? So here I am in prison, in isolation. Now I start figuring out these things that have been driving me and getting to a place where I am more comfortable and balanced, but I still had that fear. And it wasn't until I openly acknowledged it and I learned how to let go of it myself and to be vulnerable. And I got to admit, in prison, I was very fortunate to have some good supports, right? I had some supports on the outside, obviously you being foremost, but I also had some good men around me who were able to give me the support that I needed when I was willing to open up and be vulnerable, that helped me kind of work through those things, and where I felt strong and confident enough in myself to continue to be vulnerable. I mean, that's the only way that our relationship moved forward. But it's one of those things that, it takes time. And over time, I used to wake up and go, oh my God, like she drives 6.5 hours to come see me. Like you don't have anything to worry about. This woman's amazing. She is, making all of these sacrifices. And that to me, I was very fortunate. Like there were incredible sacrifices she made. So I stopped questioning those things and I got over that fear eventually. But I'm gonna be honest, it took me some time some years.
Oh my God, I want to respond to that. Okay, I'll respond to that first, then I'll give my thought. But I remember I think you were still in Allenwood, so it was kind of early in our relationship. But you used to walk around and say, she's going to wake up one day and realize like, what the hell is she doing? And she's going to leave. And I think that was you kind of like potentially softening a blow for yourself. And somebody called you out on it. I remember. And maybe I'm remembering wrong, but I kind of remember, or I vaguely remember you telling me that somebody called you out on it and you were like, oh shit, like I do have to watch my words because words have a lot of meaning. And I get it because you were trying to soften a potential blow, but it's like 6 of 1, half a dozen, right? And I want to say this, and I know Cecilia's relationship is a little bit different, but to speak to everybody, I know it's a little more difficult for lifers, but I've had the privilege of working with all different people on the outside in a prison relationship who started in different areas, right? And the women who were with their loved one before sentencing, I would say 100% of them would go through a phase where when their loved one is finally sentenced and they're in prison, they push them away. The loved one on the inside pushes the person on the outside away. Every single woman I've worked with. And I always go back to them and I say, listen, this is part of their process, right? Number one, it's a fear of abandonment. And I'm going to do it first so she doesn't do it to me. Number two, I don't know how the hell I'm going to be able to nurture this relationship from the inside. Number three, and there might be more, and please feel free to jump in. But number three, right, they go through, like, in my opinion, what I've seen, a hardening phase, because they have to figure out how they're going to survive every single day inside of this new society that they know nothing about. And most of the time it's very violent. And they don't know how they're going to, in your words that you told me very early on, straddle one foot in each world. So they'd rather shut out the outside world and put both feet on the inside world versus trying to figure out how to like have this soft side and potentially hide stuff and emotions. And they're in the process of like shutting off those emotions and maybe potentially joining a gang or this or that. And I could tell you almost every single time within a couple of months, he'll reach back out to that woman because he realizes, oh my God, I don't have any ties to anybody on the outside and I'm alone and I'm scared and this is terrible. So if you're in that phase right now, just give him time. And if he decides like, no, I'm going to harden up and I'm going to join a gang and I'm going to go do all of that stuff, then as hard as it is for you in the moment, you don't need that in your life. You don't need to wait around for all those years for him to go be a better criminal and potentially be in the revolving door in and out of prison.
Whew. Well put.
I like to talk about this kind of stuff because I learned so much throughout the years and it's been a while since I have, so I appreciate all these questions.
Yeah, no, the fans definitely know like how to get the good stuff out of you both. They've probably been waiting for this for a while. A lot of people have been commenting.
We'll do it again soon if they want.
Yeah. So we have Michelle Galati here saying happy birthday, Ro. And this is a question for the both of you. Ro, how long did it take you after Adam got out to feel used to your new life together on the outside? And Adam, are you used to being on the outside now? How long did it take you after getting out? So happy for you both.
I think it was like pretty immediate. Like I just felt like we were walking into the life of our dreams, as cheesy as that sounds. Like we dreamed about it and we waited for it for so long. And again, like we walked into a new city, a new house. So like I felt like we were on this vacation. Like we would, and it was perfect time of year. It was September in Las Vegas. We would go for hikes. We would work out outside. I would work from home, but I have like these early hours, so I'm done during the day. We would go to the Phoenix and go to classes. We were like exploring this new city. I felt like two young kids on a honeymoon, right? 6 weeks later, I find out I'm pregnant. So that's something brand new for us to explore and learn and do together. And then like 9 months later, we're parents for the first time. So that's something new and fun to explore. So I never felt like, oh my God, I have to transition from prison wife to life together. It all just kind of fell into place in this beautiful way. Was it all easy? No, absolutely not. I was just talking about like postpartum depression for a year, but it's been fun. And I feel like, we like literally took off running and I don't ever want to spend a day without you, even though I have to when you go away, but that's okay.
Well, we're coming up on that 3-year mark in just a couple of weeks. And I am acutely aware every morning. Like when I go out, I go for a run, I look around, I see the mountains, I watch the sunrise, and I feel just as grateful today as I did the very first day when I ventured out in the neighborhood and took that first run. Like, so it is still new, it is still fresh. And when I come in the door, like I am just as equally as excited to see you, and obviously now to see Christian too. Like none of that has worn off, but I will say that I am also very, very intentional about paying attention to those things. And there are interesting, we were listening to a podcast about cultivating states, right? And I know that part of my routine is meant to cultivate that state, that I have ingrained it as part of what I do each morning, how I get going, how we end the day with gratitude. Like those are things that keep it very top of mind for me, so I don't ever lose that sense. And when I was on the phone with an individual who just got out the other day, a guy from Florida, I was talking to him, and he was talking about just the challenges he's having with family and like they're not at a good place. And as we were talking, I only had a few minutes to talk to him. The one thing that I suggested that he focus on was to not lose that sense, that feeling of appreciation, of gratitude that he has right now. Like every day, just looking around and seeing things with that same sense of awe and appreciation. If you can hold on to that, like, man, that's how everybody should live every day. For those of us who have been deprived of that for so long, I think we have a greater appreciation.
I agree. And I want to add this too, for people that are going through it right now, like it's not all sunshine and roses all the time. And we just said it the other day. I literally said, sometimes I miss that old life because it was easier. It was not happier. It was not nearly as fulfilled. It was easier, meaning it was regimented. I knew, I had basically like every weekday down. I had the weekends down. I had, my visit weekends, and I knew exactly what I was going to do. And I would stay with my friend, and it was very, very routine, very regimented. And sometimes there's an easiness to that, right? And we have
just like prison.
Yeah, very similar. And I know because you told me about your routine and I developed my routine, and I would teach people like have a routine this way. When he goes into lockdown or lock up or whatever it is, you stick to that routine so you don't get lost in your thoughts and depression and, oh my God, what's going on with him? I haven't heard from him. Did he get stabbed? Did he get this? Did he get that? Just stick to your routine and do it. So having a routine is easy, right? And we've been in this situation now where we've had like business deals fall through and all of these difficult things. I still would never take that former life back, but I can look back and be like, oh, I kind of miss how the simplicity of it, I guess.
No, I totally agree and totally get that. I think we are better equipped to deal with those challenges when they come up because of the aspects of our routine that we built into it.
Yeah.
Alrighty, we got the last question here for the stream. It comes from Carter Bentley, or actually Cecilia McMillan. I read that Carter Bentley one. Looking back, what was a challenge that you had in life that prepared you for helping Adam obtain freedom?
Wow. There are so many. First of all, thank you also, Carter, because you're killing it with the questions today too. But I would say the biggest challenge in my life that helped me prepare for helping get Adam out, it kind of happened simultaneously, was helping take care of my mom when she was dying, when she was going through her cancer journey, because it was one of the most difficult situations in my whole entire life. However, I wouldn't trade it for the world, because my mom and I weren't always the closest. She was very like rule with an ironclad fist, old school Catholic. She was tough on us, me and my siblings, when we were growing up. But having the opportunity to move back in with her, Adam was away, and I'm always so grateful for this time in my life, because if if Adam was home or we didn't have that situation, I would have been married, living somewhere else, and maybe having kids at the time. And I wouldn't have been able to have that time with her. And we got really, really, really close. And we would have a lot of fun together. And I've always been able to make a positive out of a negative. So even when she was sick, like we would, have maybe not dance parties, but we would have we'd watch favorite shows and she would wait for me and I would cook her favorite meals. So going through that and having to find the positive in all of that and being so grateful for the short time that I did have with her helped prepare me for, having to find the positives in my relationship with Adam and just surviving the prison system and being grateful for everything that we did have. So maybe it didn't happen prior to, it happened simultaneously, but I learned so many lessons through both these difficult, very different, but also kind of similar situations that help get me through.
Wow. Yeah. And that's a great way to end it, to wrap things up, especially with your mom. She was such an influence. I wish I would have had the opportunity to meet her in person, to spend time.
Me too, but part of me wonders if you'd even be here if she wasn't in heaven, like bribing God with her homemade sauce. Like, you got to let him out. I need to give her back.
We often attribute her with, the reason we are here today. We've had a lot of help, and we've had a lot of help from many of you who tuned in today to be a part of this.
Not just today, but throughout all the years.
Over the years, the many years that we went through all of our challenges so that we could be here today, the power of perseverance and overcoming all of those seemingly insurmountable odds to have this life, to be able to celebrate this birthday.
And you know what? Like I've said for all the years, it's not just us. We would love to see you attain the life of your dreams. Whatever that life looks like to you, just go after it, run for it. And don't let anything stand in your way. We are your biggest cheerleaders.
Love it. And that's what Gritability is all about. So we will see you back here on the next episode. We love you guys. Thanks for tuning in.
Thanks for all the birthday wishes too.